as we're getting started, again, welcome everyone. This is the fourth meeting that we're holding in our equity and justice docket, all in relation to equity improvements in the integrated grid plan request for proposals. So, of course, we've had several meetings in the last year plus, but this has been a series of meetings since this fall, focusing on ways to develop and improve the IGP RFP process, particularly in light of equity improvements. So again, thank you to everyone that's here today. We can go to the next slide. We're talking here about just the meeting norms. Please stay mindful to practice democracy of time when you're sharing, just giving an opportunity for others to be able to speak as well, but we certainly want to hear from folks when there is time to offer comments and questions. Be expansive, consider new possibilities, and push the envelope in some of your thinking on these topics. Respect and appreciate others' unique and lived perspectives is especially important here as we, consider sort of the principles of equity as we're looking at equity and energy justice. We also have a bike rack function, meaning that if you do have thoughts or insights that are outside of the scope, particularly what we're talking about today, that's okay. We'll still capture those in notes and perhaps, raise those at a different time. So again, just encouraging everyone to be expansive and thoughtful. We can keep going. I will say, Dean Harvest, I don't think he's here. He had to attend to another work matter. He did want to share this opening and blessing with us. I will give it my best shot in honor of my Hawaiian language teachers back at UH grad school many years ago. So, ahoe nui ka hana ke alu. Yeah. No task is too big when done together by all. It's a beautiful sentiment and a great way to kick off today's meeting. Okay, I think we can move on to the agenda to make sure we're all getting settled in what we'll be focusing on and talking about today. It's actually a great opportunity to have been collaborating with the Energy Equity Hui. Stephanie Chang and Lauren Watanabe will be presenting more on community co-creation and community energy boards today. There will be an opportunity following both of their presentations for discussion and share out. We have some interactive tools we'll be utilizing through Mentimeter and really having an opportunity to be very engaged on community co-creation today. And let's see, so moving on, let's talk a bit about just the logistical notes for today. As we usually do, the staff at the commission will be taking notes on today's meeting. The statements in these notes will not be attributed to individuals or organizations, so please feel free to share, but know that we will not be capturing attribution. And they will be, though, filed to the docket record and on the equity website. The plenary sessions will be recorded to ensure that staff can refer to what was said if clarity is needed. And we'll begin recording that here just in a moment when we close out this introduction. Notes will also be taken in our breakout rooms, and just note that those breakout discussions will not be recorded. So we encourage you to offer your feedback, and just know that that will be shared and captured anonymously. If you do have any other questions or issues, particularly on the technical aspect of today's meeting, please email Alika at his email as listed here. Again, or you can just chime in on the chat. Although if you're having trouble with WebEx, you can't do the chat. So hopefully it's helpful. And let's see, we'll just keep moving on to at least level set for everyone the status of where we are in this docket. This is a slide you've seen before if you've attended previous meetings, but it's just showing the timeline of our activities, particularly since this fall. In September, we did file order number 40290, which basically was the Commission's statement of next steps, particularly in regards to focusing on this focused or targeted work stream for the IGP RFP equity improvements. This is our fourth meeting. We've started back in October. Here we are in January, and we do intend to have a fifth meeting coming up here soon, which we'll talk about here in a moment. We've also been launching the effort to acquire and obtain a local consultant to support our outreach and stakeholder engagement efforts. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. Next slide, please. Okay, and as we're again getting settled into the meeting, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You can just include your name, role, organization, if applicable, just as a way to say hello. We just don't have time to go around the room, but we certainly would love to hear from you all as you get settled in today's meeting. And okay, next slide, just to again reaffirm the meeting objectives today. We are learning about alternative solutions to improve equity in the RFP process, RFP co-creation, and community energy advisory boards. We'll be discussing the feasibility of these solutions in the near term and the long term, and to co-prioritize solutions for the next round of RFPs in the integrated grid plan. This is also an opportunity to explore additional opportunities for participants to provide feedback on proposed solutions and to offer ideas for new solutions. So again, we really encourage participation from all attendees today. Next slide. And to frame today's conversation, again, it will be largely led by Stephanie and Lauren, who will be turning it over to shortly. It's been wonderful to be collaborating with them and providing an opportunity for their leadership and voices in this role and in this process. We certainly encourage that opportunity for other organizations or groups. So we just please keep that in mind for future meetings or presentations. And just noting that, you know, what they are sharing today is their position. And we look forward to learning more from them. Next slide, please. Just providing this helpful visual on where we are in the sort of Venn diagram of the equity and justice docket. Within our focus to explore the siting and hosting of energy infrastructure, it's one of the 5 tracks that we've established. There's also been this opportunity to do a deeper dive into improving and incorporating equitable elements into the IGP RFPs. Next slide, please. And just to highlight again where we are with these meetings, as we pointed out previously, this is meeting number 4. We're looking at co-creation and community energy advisory boards. The next meeting date to be determined, most likely in February or early March. We will be looking on sort of next steps and providing that final community input into the RFP process. So more to come on that. Next slide, please. And one final message from the Commission. We did just file a request for feedback in the equity docket last week. This is regarding the local consultant scope, of which we will be launching and publishing an RFP very soon, but we wanted to provide an opportunity for stakeholders to weigh in on that scope and provide feedback, whether in the form of comments or questions. And suggestions. So if you are interested to provide that feedback, please file in the docket as a public comment by Friday, February 9th. So you have almost 2 weeks. And if you do have questions about how to file, please feel free to call our PUC main line, 586-2020, or you could email Mike Wallerstein at his email is listed here. Okay, well, let's see, we're about to turn it all over to Stephanie Chang. Again, want to thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to learning more about community co-creation with Stephanie's presentation. Over to you, Stephanie.
Can you hear me now? Thanks so much, Ashley. Appreciate that.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen. WebEx would like to record this computer screen. Okay. Gosh, now it's asking me, there's a window that's popped up. I'm so sorry, guys. Sorry about this.
No worries.
No web.
Steven, I'm so embarrassed.
How's it doing now, Stephanie?
Okay, it's saying it's not recording, which is fine. And let's see if I can share it now. Okay, I think I'm going to have Pete share my slide deck because my computer is
No
a little
problem.
fussy.
That's the beauty of having your slides in multiple places. Then you can just focus on what you're sharing today. Let's see, Pete or Alika, are you guys able to share those slides?
I have it pulled up and I can share. It's just in the PDF version, if that's okay, Stephanie.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say a mahalo to the PUC and to all of you for this opportunity to share with you guys. Yeah, Lauren and I are both members of the RFP workstream, which is a subgroup of the Energy Equity Hui. Are you able to, I guess, go into presentation mode? I guess maybe this is presentation mode. Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Perfect. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, so Lauren and I are both members of the RFP workstream. My name is Stephanie Chang. I run a design studio called Stephanie Chang Design Inc. That offers visual communications, messaging, and convenings for community-led transformation. And Lauren, if you want to just hop in right now and give a little mini introduction to yourself as well.
Oh, sure. Yes, me and my work, I'm Lauren Ballesteros Watanabe. I work for the Sierra Club of Hawaii. I predominantly do community organizing around energy justice. I work with youth a lot in the climate justice movement and do like education and facilitation through that. And I love what I do. And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Yay. So this RFP workstream is a mini reflection of the Energy Equity Hui as a whole. And as you can see, as a Hui, we represent, government entities, private businesses, private developers, regulatory agencies, and community-based and grassroots nonprofits, as well as the utility. And the Energy Equity Hui itself is a community of practice to explore equitable outcomes in support of communities as our system undergoes deep transformation toward a clean energy and resilient and decarbonized economy. So Kurt Sue, who's on the top left of the circle, and myself are the team leads for this specific subgroup, of the Energy Equity Hui. Next slide, please. So we've been meeting monthly as a subgroup for just over a year now. And the purpose was to explore our procurement system for developing grid scale renewable energy projects. And the conclusion of that was the creation of an 18-page letter, which we're really proud about. And we filed it with the PUC Energy Equity and Justice docket in October of last year. The letter represents our best ideas for improving what we see as an RFP process ripe for disruption. And you can read the full letter here. And what I want to say is at the end of the presentation, I'm going to post all the links in the chat because obviously you can't click on this, so that you'll have all the links to the documents that we're referring to. Next slide, please. So today we're presenting two key ideas of our letter for your consideration and for your feedback. The first one is presented by myself, and it's a recommendation to significantly retool the RFP process through co-design with community to create the RFP itself. It's a mouthful. We're going to break it down and get into it. And Lauren's presenting on the second. I don't know, Lauren, if you wanted to jump in and say this one.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little lag. I'm still seeing the other one. I'm so sorry. Can you just hop on? I have it.
Oh yeah,
Audio internet issue. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, the second recommendation, which Lauren's going to be speaking about later on today, is to create a community energy board to support a community-driven process. And she'll get into that too and break it down. Next slide, please. So, before we jump right in, we want to first share what led us to this work. It is the best practice in working with communities to share our intention and share where we're from and where we're coming from. So that's me on the left. Obviously, that's Lauren on the right. The arrow for myself is pointing directly at me. I grew up in Hawaii Kai. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in. And I live, in between Kaiser High School and the Hawaii Kai Library. I was really fortunate to grow up in a really stable and loving family. And I think the inner revolution for me was developing like an intimate connection with Aina. It is where my spirit soars, and it is where I really developed an understanding of our connection, that we are all connected to this earth and to each other. And, I've certainly experienced pain and injustice in my life. There's the crushing cost of living. And as a young artist, the struggle to really thrive in these systems of power, and maybe these are even like social infrastructures of power. And so all of that together, I think, leads me to really see things from the outside, from the margins. And I actually see things from a really different perspective. And all of this, I feel like, has really led to a personal kuleana, to work with others, to design systems that better work for all of us. And this photo, I love. For one thing, I'm being held by my dad, who actually recently passed away. But what's really amazing is if you stand in my parents' yard and you look out at that mountain that's behind us, it is totally covered in houses right now. It's Mariner's Ridge. So I just love that this photo just captures this moment of time, right? Our communities all are undergoing great transformation in different ways. I love that this photo kind of captures this moment. And the other really fun thing is the girl on the extreme left. I have 3 sisters, but the girl on the extreme left is not my sister. She's actually like the neighbor up the street, Leanne Sakota, who played a lot with my two older sisters. She's closer in age to them. So I didn't really play with her much, but I just love that like she made it in the photo and yeah, really fun. Go for it, Lauren.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I do think it's really important to ground ourselves in who we are and why we're here, because we can be doing a million different jobs and different things, but we're here. So I'm Lauren. I'm originally from Los Angeles. And so I think my relationship with the environment has been a huge contrast now to what it was. I very much grew up in what you would consider like a typical environmental injustice community, where like urban oil fields, those little like, I don't know if anybody's seen them, are kind of the norm where I grew up. Didn't even think twice about it because of that. And very industrial, and just having the lens and who I am, because I have the privilege to had the privilege to go to college, that kind of fuels me, that I just to denormalize those things. And so of course, like as a mother and as an Indigenous Chicana, I really am passionate about really not only denormalizing these things, but really supporting those whose generational resilience and whose knowledge, right, Native Hawaiians and Indigenous people around the world are who we really need right now to steward us into a future where we are preserving the sacred beauty, but also precious resources we have. And so, of course, as hard as I fight, for like climate catastrophe, it's really the systems creating it and tied to the systems my children will be living in. So of course, I'm motivated by both equally as strong, that I want them to live in a inhabitable planet, but also one where they can thrive and just live in joy and liberation. So that's me, and that's why I do this work. Thank you.
Thank you, mahalo. Next slide. So today, right, we're here to talk about electricity. But if we zoom out a bit, right, energy is actually life force. It's the life force of a living system. And I could ask you, like, what gave you energy this morning? Or like, what energizes you, right? And so actually what we've got here is the very first 4 lines of the Kumulipo, which is Hawaii's creation chant. It's a 2,000 line chant that tells about the birth of all living things. It's quite encyclopedic, but really its value, I think, is it shows the interrelationship of all of the elements of nature. And so this very first line is about the heat energy of the earth. First line of the creation chant, heat energy of the earth. The second line is about the sky. The third line is about the sun. And the fourth line is about the sun's relationship to the moon, that the sun's light illuminates the moon. Like, so incredible. So the Kumulipo begins with energy that gives life. Next slide, please. So energy is actually our shared genealogy. And energy, and hence, right, energy is not just a thing you take. Energy democracy is not just being aware of where power comes from, right? Natural, clean, renewable, and decarbonized sources. It's also how we consume it, it's how we relate to it, and it's how we govern it. Next slide. So the conversations in energy, rightfully so, often involve a conversation about technology. But both of the solutions that Lauren and I are presenting today are really activating community technology. So what is that? Community technology to me is about honoring community intelligence. It's the expertise that comes from knowing your place, knowing the place and the people intimately. It's the skill sets of relating and caring for each other and the environment that actually must be taught, learned, and cultivated. It involves emotional intelligence, heart leadership skills of compassion, communication, listening, translation, and consensus building, and taking all of it and transforming it into system solutions. So community residents are ideally poised to organize and deliver solutions to the people and places they know intimately. Residents are asking for and deserve a voice in decision-making that affects the transformation of their community. And this really great quote spoken by my wise friend, people closest to the pain have the solutions. Next slide, please. So yeah, we get stuck when we treat systems as perfect, whole, and complete, and people as broken. What is possible if we flip it around? And Sable Mensah, I learned about this quote before I learned about her. She's like a DEI, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant on the mainland. Okay, next slide, please. So that just sort of sets up for both Lauren and I'm going to just launch into our very first solution that we're excited to present to you all today and to get your feedback on. So next slide, please. So I just wanted to, kind of ground this in the fact that community-driven solutions are a part of Hawaii's genealogy. So this is within the natural resource management sector of Hawaii. It's called a CBSFA. Anybody heard of it? It stands for Community-Based Subsistence Fishing Areas, and it's a relatively new development and certainly a win for community. What it does is it allows like kupuna or longtime lineal descendants who are really intimate with the resource. They're really intimate with their place, with the shore line and near shore coastal waters. And it allows them to apply their traditional ecological knowledge into rules that are made for the state about those resources. So they're co-managing it, with DLNR. Yeah, it's really a win for traditional ecological knowledge, indigenous technology, and Native Hawaiian ways of knowing. And so to explain what I mean, here's how I understand it is that, like, for instance, like off Waikiki shoreline, there is no fishing or diving. You can't like catch live fish on odd number years. But if it's an even number year, so in 2024, you are able to. But for those who are really intimate with the ocean, they know that a certain species of fish will spawn and lay eggs from September until March. So wouldn't you want to incorporate this knowledge in the way in which you manage the ocean? Like the purpose is to replenish, right? And not deplete the source, the resource. So it makes perfect sense, right? To just incorporate the knowledge of how nature is already operating into these rules and laws that are designed to replenish the population of fish. Yeah, so the very first CBSFA was passed in 2014, and this can be like a 10 years long process. It's a really long, challenging process that they've been able to win at. It's pretty incredible. First CBFSA was passed for Ha'ena, North Kauai. In 2022, Miloli'i got it passed for West Hawaii Island. And then just several weeks ago, Kipahulu passed their CBSFA for Southeast Maui. So amazing. And just for clarification, Ealupu, that's the name of the network of individuals and communities that are working to advocate for CBSFAs, among other things. And that organization was founded by Uncle Mac Poi Poi of Molokai from Mo'omomi. And then KUA is the nonprofit organization that actually supports the work, supports Ealupu. Yeah, so that's, I think I just want to share another example of community-driven stuff outside of energy. Next slide, please. So Molokai is like a hotbed, right? Like amazing. Also birthed on Molokai is our Oahu Energy Cooperative. It is the first community-owned developer in Hawaii, right? It's a response to wanting affordable energy from renewables through a system that is designed in alignment with the Molokai community's values and builds long-term sustainable and financial sovereignty for the community as owners. I also want to quickly say too, yeah, this energy co-op, not to be confused with KIUC, which is a utility co-op. This is an energy customer co-op. And I also want to use this moment. So Oahu is going to be providing 20% of Molokai's energy needs. And I also wanted to use this moment to really kako'o, lift up Ali Andrews here. Ali is a member of our RFP workstream within the Energy Equity Hui, and she's also a really key member in this Molokai's Clean Energy Coalition. And so I really appreciate a lot of her work in developing the methodology for co-creation through Oahu was, shared with our group for the creation of the letter, and as well as informing the content of this presentation as well. So mahalo nui to Ali. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next, also birthed on Molokai is Molokai CRAP, the Community Energy Resilience Action Plan. This is the first independent, island-wide, community-led, and expert-informed collaborative planning process to increase renewable energy on Molokai. And they did come out with their final report, which is that image, that graphic you see. Highly recommend you check it out if this is of interest to you. It's a 105-page report, chock full of amazing content that I think is going to be useful for all of us moving forward if we choose to really, pursue a pilot with community co-creation. Lauren referred to it as quote unquote sacred text. Like it's just a really great capture of so much work. Often we're jamming on working and we never have the chance to look back and reflect and sort of make meaning with everything that is going on. I feel like the report tries its best to really do that. Again, this link is going to be at the end. Yeah, and so as a testament to the viability of community co-creation, Molokai received a $3 million grant at the end of last year to begin its CRAP 2.0, right? So this is actually now implementing the plan, the roadmap that was created, it's documented in this report. It's now to begin the process of community engagement and technical engagement to determine, finesse down and determine the solutions for the remaining 80% of Molokai's energy needs. So that's incredible. Next slide, please. Sorry, if you switch it, it's okay. I wanted to also call Sebastian here, who is featured in that other photo. Sebastian is also a member of that Clean Energy Coalition on Molokai. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Pete. He's right there on the left, and he was really has played a big role in the creation of the content for this presentation as well. So it's just a huge mahalo to him, and just mahalo for sharing Molokai's process and methodology. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so community co-creation is a participatory process. It is a community-led process to determine a solution for a specific place. It is a practice of empowerment, mutual learning, and consensus building to create bottom-up, people-centered energy design. It looks like this, right? It's people poring over information together. It's using these kind of fun, innovative methods of Post-it notes to gather people's feedback. It's marking up maps and really working together to develop understanding. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. So the upfront co-creation with community, which I'm going to explain what that is, I want to just quickly say it can really solve many of the problems with our existing RFP structure. So this slide, this screenshot is a slide from, I believe it was meeting number 2, which is what the PUC presented, which is the problem statements that we all said were the problem with the RFP process. It was condensed into these 5 things. And in my mind, co-creation with community really solves 4 out of the 5 problems. In some instances, it just simplifies things. But really what it does is it allows for an alignment with community interest and a project, including the RFP process to get to the project. So let's jump right in. Next slide, please. So this is the current RFP process. So note that there are, and sorry, I want to say RFP, we've been using that term. I probably said it at least 10 times already, but it stands for request for proposal. So it is, in this instance, it's a process to approve a proposal for a project. An RFP can also be the thing itself. It's like the proposal. So just wanting to make sure I say that for those who might not be familiar. So there are these stages, right, in the RFP process. And in past years, I think this process was probably not visualized, or it wasn't clear that there was a process. So it was really challenging for people to learn when to engage and how to, insert maybe their voice and preferences in the process. I think that was very true in the early years. So in this process, what happens first, right, is Hawaiian Electric releases a request for proposal that, I'm here in this top, you can't see my cursor. I'm here in this top left rectangle. And then the PUC approves the RFP. And then the RFP is open for bid. That's the next rectangle to the right. It says bid. It's open for bid. Anybody can bid on it. And then it goes into award, and then approval, and then permitting, construction, and then ideally the project is done. Yeah. So what's really interesting here, this red arrow that's in award, okay? This is typically in years past. Right now, right? We just completed stage 3 RFPs. This is kind of the 3rd round of RFPs, and the RFPs have improved with each round. But in the early days, that red arrow, energy developer formalizes community engagement. That is when they would begin the community engagement. And the award has already been given. In essence, the specs of the project, right? Where it's being cited, the form of energy, other design aspects have already been decided. And there's been a cost associated with that. And so if they begin community engagement there, whatever feedback the community gives them really can't influence or change the project. And it's really a recipe for seeding resentment, because while community is asked for feedback, their feedback in reality can't change the design. So we recognize that this process, as we see it, was not really designed for community input. And just to clarify, the yellow boxes are where community has a chance to engage. And so in newer RFPs, see the orange arrow, which is in the bid box, that is where developers were encouraged to begin engagement. So that's awesome. However, I have here 9 months for this bid process, but the most recent stage 3 RFP, I believe, was only 3 months. So
Oh no, did we lose Stephanie? Are there other folks still on, or is it just me that's frozen?
I can't hear her anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost her.
Oh, bummer. Okay, well, we could just give it a moment for Stephanie to be reconnected. That's always so challenging with all of this virtual work. Um, let's see. Lauren, would you want to speak to anything about her remainder slides?
okay.
Um, just as an option while she's getting reconnected here.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I'm not as familiar with this portion, but I do know and I don't mean to put them on the spot, but like Sebastian or Ali or something
I'm
are much
actually
more
back.
involved.
So
Oh,
sorry.
perfect then.
Yay.
Thank you.
I'm not
Great,
sure
welcome
what
back.
happened. Did I completely get cut off there? I apologize.
It's okay. You're back.
Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you anymore.
Okay, so sorry. I'm not sure where exactly I got cut off, but I think
You were
when I was
talking about how the most recent RFP process lasted 3 months and then you got cut
okay,
off.
yeah. So thanks, guys, and apologies. The orange arrow is where the more, like the most recent, like stage 3 RFPs were encouraging developers to do community engagement. So that's awesome and encouraging. However, that bid process, and I have here in this image 9 months, but as Ashley was saying, I think the most recent stage of the RP was only 3 months. So what kind of meaningful engagement can you really do? And so there's the issue of time, and there's also the issue of cost, right? If you're asking a developer to do engagement here at this point, it's a significant investment of resources and time, or just resources. And there's no guarantee they're going to win the bid. So it's challenging, right? I can see how it's challenging our existing system as it is now to really do it right. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Can you go back? I'm sorry. So I guess I just wanted to quickly say that all of these efforts to improve the RP, yes, it does feel a little bit still like a Band-Aid effort. And I think that's everything I needed to say for this slide. Next slide, please. So the idea in our letter is to do upfront co-creation with community here before the RFP is released by Hawaiian Electric for PUC approval. Yeah, so the RFP, which will be created and approved by the community, will already reflect community input and can be made available for bid. Developers or contractors will be assessed on least cost. So it very much simplifies things. We don't need to assess them on non-price criteria and it's we're just going to assess them on least costs to execute the plan that has been vetted by the community and truly serves community's needs. Next slide, please. So co-creation presents communities the opportunity to build a renewable energy project that suits and addresses their needs. It invites the community to shape and determine the aspects of a project cited in their community. So rather than asking like, do you want a project? I mean, if you ask me, my answer is probably not so enthusiastic of a yes. But if you ask me like, what do I want to see in a project? I think I might respond in a very different way. So this comes from Molokai CRAP's process, and how they did their co-creation was the first round of engagement is to identify initial preferences and priorities. And I would say in our instance, right, we would establish a community's values and priorities as well, which Molokai didn't really have to do so much of because there's so much consensus already on their values and what they believe in. Round two is to expand the discussion with the broader community, right? Because there's only a selection of people that are coming to really participate fully at first. Round three is to refine community preferences and priorities. And then round four is to confirm consensus around the final product. So if you can think of Molokai CRAP process being like 2 years long, round one through round four took up the whole 2 years as example. Like I just want to explain like that's how the project progresses through these kind of phases. Yeah. Next slide, please. So that first round, right? When you're trying to identify preferences and priorities, I wanted to just give you a sense of like what that looks like. So this came from Oahu's process when they worked with the Molokai community to determine the design of their energy project, right? It's just a sampling, right? You want to let people know what is possible. And for each of these items, you can give examples so that they can really like they can become open to, again, what is possible. So, do we want a project that's sited on already existing commercial infrastructure or already developed land, right? I'm just skipping down. Would we prefer a project it's most important to us that it pays its workers a living wage? Is it most important to us that the project allows for dual land use so that we can use it as also like a community playground or a community garden or grazing livestock? Is it most important to us that it is completely out of the public view shed? Every one of these variables, right, affects the design and also the cost. So it really is about communicating or trying to understand a community's priorities. And I will say, and how you can do that too is invite them to rank it. So Energize Kako, which is HSEO's community engagement project, we utilize this activity with the 7 communities that we worked with. And yeah, it was really interesting and fun. And the results can be seen in our final report. So I have the link for that for you guys as well later. Yeah, I think that's everything. Next slide, please. So what are the competencies, right, for carrying out co-creation successfully? Can we do this? What's really needed? So I created this graph, right, which was adapted from Molokai CRAP's report. Essentially, the key tasks for carrying out community co-creation are the following at the top, right? Create and execute community engagement. And if you look down a bit under Kuleana, it requires best practices in leading community facilitation, community engagement design, outreach and promotion, coordination of events. Then what happens next, right, is you gather the input from community, right? And so what's needed are people to show up, participants bring voice and presence. So right? And then the next step is feedback captured and presented into meaningful understanding. And then the next step is determine constructive energy solutions for consideration. So directly below are sort of, actual roles like the community planning entity, potentially who will support and execute the community engagement. Input from the community requires community residents. A community leadership team supports the community residents and is looking out for their best interests, but also plays a role in translating and making sense of the feedback that has been gathered. And then to determine the energy solutions for consideration, we definitely need technical expertise and resource advisors. And in this instance, Molokai referred to resource advisors as really our government entities. So the PUC, HSEO, the DCA as an example. But really, Kay, all of this together, let's say you have every one of these items and you have every one of these roles, it still won't be successful unless you have these elements at the bottom. And it is trust through transparency, a willingness to kind of go through like a rigorous iteration of sharing and translation. Energy is so technical. It really requires a lot of energy to understand it, yeah? And then you need a dedicated leadership that is trustworthy and accountable, firm commitment to community goals and values, equal parts, community expertise and technical expertise, and a place-based process for community co-design. So next slide, please. So I put this together, which is a graphic to explain the roles. So at the bottom is the community planning expertise, the technical expertise, and the resource expert advisors. And they're really there to lift up and support the community leadership team. I have CEB here in parentheses, stands for Community Energy Board, which Lauren is going to be presenting on. So it's perhaps a possibility that the community leadership team looks at the Community Energy Board. And then the community leadership team is there to lift up community residents. So I really hope this graphic sort of shares the relationship of these roles. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I was just informed by Pete that we're running a little behind, so I'm going to try and speed up these last slides. So 2 years accounts for 3 phases. The first 12 months is to go from round 1 to round 4. And then 8 months is to do a land identification process, which includes spatial GIS analysis, identifying what land parcels are available with recommendations from localized knowledge, reaching out to the landowners. And then the last bunch of months is to circle back to the community and get their final approval and consensus. Next slide, please. Time. Yeah. What about the time that's needed to engage communities meaningfully? Yeah, we know the idea of slowing down to carry out meaningful community engagement may feel like counterintuitive, right? Given the urgency of everything and the drumbeat to get to 100% clean energy by 2045. However, not doing the process in an inclusive way could be even more catastrophic to getting toward that goal. It significantly increases the risk of the success of any of these projects because of community resistance. A project with a strong community foundation and community buy-in, we believe, will go faster through the RFP approval process and the permitting and construction process as well. So yeah, we must go slow to go fast. Shalonda Baker, who is a hero to all of us for energy justice, has this amazing quote, buying into a discourse that centers the primacy of action over the primacy of people is inherently unsustainable and will inevitably lead to greater instability than climate change portends. You can read the quote later, it's so good. Next slide, please. Okay, what about the costs, right? Connected to engaging communities meaningfully. So costs to design the project are already are already part of the cost of a renewable energy project. Now, it requires more time, right, to engage community. And what we're saying is when you do it in upfront, it de-risks the project. So decisions made have already been vetted and it won't lead to more costs later to build and execute. What about the cost to design a project that's been selected by community? So we realize that communities may choose aspects that increase the cost. For example, raised solar panels, which allow for goats to graze, involves more steel, which impacts the project's cost. And a design which minimizes the threat of wildfire or reduces its impact on the water system may cost more. However, communities are cost conscious and are willing to work within an understanding of trade-offs involved. And it would be the job of the planning team, right, to convey and work in this container, knowing that there are trade-offs needed. So we just want to say optimizing the project design to match community needs allows for a more comprehensively robust and sustainable solution that generates co-benefits, that advances the wellness of the community and complements social, cultural, ecological. So it's kind of like bigger than energy at this point, in my thought. Oh, sorry, next slide. I was pressing the cursor to go right. Yeah, so I think we're a little bit out of time, but essentially, when you engage with community, you could invite them to define their relationship to the project. And, you know, one role is simply as a community co-designer, but we don't own, we have no stake in the project, we don't own it, and then we receive community benefits. The other is we co-design, we are partial owners, right? And it involves things, sort of some of which I've listed here. And then this is probably the most challenging thing, right? What Oahu did, which is 100% owned and developed. But it offers the most sovereignty, the most decision-making, and, you know, the idea of profit. And one quick thing I want to say, which I think is going to please Sebastian, is if in fact we go down this path of inviting communities to have 100% ownership and be its own developer and owner, we will need to look at the RFP process and kind of carve out a pathway for community as developer, because the RFP process is designed to look out for public interest. But what happens when the developer in this instance is the community, and the funding earned all goes back to the community? So it's a little bit unrealistic to ask a community to go through a competitive bidding process and be treated like a corporate developer who doesn't have, you know, the resources in that way. So just throwing that out there. Next slide, please. And these things we will want to define if we do a future pilot project on community co-creation. And it's just what Molokai is dealing with in real time as they engage in co-creation. I'm just going to read this. I'm going to read the top three, which I think are the most interesting. If the results reflect community input, how can we know the solutions proposed are representative of community? So it's about establishing the metrics that demonstrate representation, and of course, the method and process which demonstrates representation, which has to some degree been already mapped out. If results reflect community input, how can we know the solution chosen is affordable to achieve? If the results reflect community input, how can we know the solution chosen is technically viable? Yeah, so hopefully, yeah, next, and defining the community and the procurement of third-party planning, how can we ensure it's in alignment with community values? Next slide, please. I think this is my last slide, this last one. Yeah, so co-design of energy infrastructure also builds valuable social infrastructure, right? The process of co-creation builds social fabric. The ability for communities to become skilled at working together is the social infrastructure of connection for building resilience, for being strong in the face of unprecedented change, climate or otherwise. This is the community technology we can build through energy, something we know is valuable and necessary for individuals, families, and communities to thrive. And this is me, Stephanie, talking here. I believe we have an opportunity for communities to develop a pilina, a connection with energy. So energy is and will be a pivotal cornerstone for healthier, more abundant communities. And the next slide concludes the presentation. I want to check in with the PUC team right now in our time. We had talked about possibly inviting questions for 5 minutes. And I also know that we have to take a break. And we also have 2 activities related to community co-creation. The first is using Mentimeter to gather your feedback on it. And the next is a breakout group. So I want to just refer to the PUC team at this point to see what makes the most sense given the time that we're at. I apologize that I went over.
No worries, Stephanie. I think what we can do is we can start the Menti live survey for the full group and invite anybody that has questions to put them in the chat. And then we can, while folks are answering those questions, the Menti survey questions. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Yeah. So Lika, if you could go to the next slide.
Yeah, next slide. There's this delay, yeah.
Sorry, Alika, could you go to the next slide? And then one more.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, so here are the 3 questions we are interested in. And we're gonna have you log into Mentimeter and you'll be able to see everyone's contributions live, right? On the screen for all of us to see together. We want to know if you can share what you like about upfront community co-creation as a solution for Hawaii's RFP process. Share any concerns you have about community co-creation as a solution. And then on a scale from 0 to 5, we're curious to hear like where on the scale do you fall in terms of your support or lack of, or not support of this idea. So if you can turn to the next slide, I believe it has the Mentimeter information that everybody will need.
So there are
you
a few
can
ways to join Menti.
go for it. Go for it, Pete. Perfect.
Put the link in the chat. You can just click that link directly and start responding. You could also go to menti.com and input this code, or you could scan this QR code with your phone. So whatever works best for you. And I'll share the live responses in a second.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. Please let us know if there are any questions about how to do this, and if you're confused and or just need a little bit of support. She says menti.com can't be reached. Don't use the slash after com. Just Darlene, are you okay? Just you, and you have 2 wwws there.
All right, we're
Yeah.
starting to get some responses, so I'll start to share the screen, Stephanie, for you.
Okay, perfect. And then I'm gonna also, guys, I'm sharing the links to all the docs. I'm gonna do that right now. Oops. Hmm.
Stephanie, would you like me to talk through some of these
I would
answers?
love it, Pete, if you want to go
Okay.
for that. Yeah.
So we're getting some good responses. To the question, please share what you like about upfront community co-creation as a solution for Hawaii's RFP process. We've got some answers about early engagement and involving residents and community members early in the process, community being involved at the forefront, as well as giving the community a larger decision-making role and the importance of this in Hawaii. Some of the themes that Stephanie has touched on too are servicing, including reducing the risk of delays, putting community perspectives first. Let's see. Stephanie, feel free to jump in and highlight any answers you see as well.
I'm wondering if there's any way to zoom out so we can see maybe more answers on one screen.
I am not sure about that. I will note that we will create a sort of a digestible version of this to file in the docket after, so this can live on. But I don't think I can really zoom out right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing some concerns noted in here as well, in addition to what excites people.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll move on to the next question then,
Yeah, do it.
which is about concerns, as some folks were already starting to talk about. So I see we're not getting as many responses to this prompt yet, and maybe folks are just still typing, or that reflects that some of the concerns are noted on the previous slide. There you go. So a few concerns about the process and about the conversation we're having here and community members' involvement, the accessibility of the process, which perhaps includes the education, when and where this will happen in process, how, I guess, sites for projects and land will be identified. I think this is a pretty good point as well about to what extent this process will or will not satisfy all community members who would like to be involved in the process, especially depending on how much of the community participates in the process. some concerns about, or some curiosity about how this interacts with the utility planning process, and the length of time, how to define community and find consensus. Seems to be a theme throughout. I think this comment sort of centers on the theme of how we intentionally would set up this community co-creation process, and who leads or facilitates. Anything you'd like to add, Stephanie?
Just so loving seeing all of this, even from the first question too, like it's just super exciting to see your feedback.
Yeah, and I think this can segue very well into our breakout groups. I know we have one other question on this mentee.
Yeah.
And maybe this will be a good segue as well. So maybe just take a few seconds to respond to this. And while you are, I'll note that I have set up breakout groups. And as the breakout groups will be sort of set up by, affiliation within the energy sector. Those will appear on your screen soon. And I've done my best to identify who should be in what breakout. But you can always self-select into a different breakout group based on the affiliations. And I think we have about 20 to 25 minutes to discuss in a little bit more detail within our groups about the process. Anything else you'd like to add to the breakout group instructions, Stephanie?
No, I think I have a slide. So maybe once Mentimeter is done, we can put up that slide so that folks can see what we're asking them to do. Sometimes I think people are multitasking right now, so they might have missed the instructions you gave.
Yes, I'll close the Menti so we can open that up. Or I'll stop presenting.
Oh yeah, so can we share the slide deck PDF again? Right, this is the one. Yeah, so you're gonna be invited to join a breakout room, and please join the one that aligns with your professional affiliation. And I also wanted to say too that I never said this I missed saying this in the beginning part of the presentation, but no, we all represent, we have a professional affiliation. We also represent ourselves, and we also represent other communities that we're a part of, including the ones that we live in. So I just wanted to maybe encourage us all to, when we show up in these rooms, like, yes, you're going to be thinking about the organization with which you work within and represent, but also like represent yourself as well. Like, I don't know, that there might be a difference. I'm not sure. So, so yeah, I think we're ready for breakout room.
Okay,
and I hope these categories, I mean, we have to limit ourselves in the number of categories. We had to kind of group a bunch together. So hopefully these work for us.
Yes, some people have not been assigned a breakout room, so you guys can join just whatever breakout room you feel like I guess piques your interest this morning. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, there should be like four dots there. So I guess you have like your mute, start video, and you have like a couple dots there. One should have like four squares in it. Click breakout sessions, and then a window should pop up, and there's a breakout sessions there, and you can click join. You should be able to scroll up and down, figure out which one piques your interest at this time, and just join that.
I don't see an option like that. It says that breakout rooms have been started and that you should be assigned. I don't.
Oh, it's not letting you choose. Okay, hold on, give me a second here.
I know where I'm supposed to go. Let's put it that way.
So just to clarify, you don't have the option on the bottom of your screen there where there's a breakout sessions and the window pops up, nothing like that.
Nope.
Okay, hold on. Let me try to assign you one here. So I'm sorry, who was that? You said you knew which one you were going. What was your name and which one were you supposed to go to here?
Nicole Shintani, and
Okay,
I belong in HSEO.
CEO. Okay, give me 10 seconds here.
Hello?
Yeah, still here. Hold on. Hold on. Thank you for your patience, though. All right. At this time, while I'm trying to figure out how to, I guess, give everyone the option to join here, does anyone else know where they want to go or need to go so I can manually assign you here?
I can't
Hi,
see the
this is
option.
Jeannie. Sorry.
I'm
This
sorry.
is
Okay,
this
Gene,
is Jeannie Skog. So I'm guessing I'm community.
community members. All right, got it. Throwing you in there right now. Thank you.
Hi, this is Camille Cleveland. I can also be put in community.
Thank you, Camille. All right, and I guess Will, I saw you pop up earlier, but I got cut off there.
Yeah, I don't see the options. I'm in the browser version of WebEx. I'm not sure if that is
Oh,
why I can't see the
that
option.
might be it, but no worries, Will. I'll help you figure out where you gotta go. Where you want to go here? Community.
Sorry, can you repeat the options?
Do you remember which group you're supposed to go in?
I don't.
You gotta guess an interest here. Which group you probably want to go in?
Oh no, I just didn't see the options pop up.
All right, so um, all right, so little breakout rooms here. We got HECO, PUC, DCCA, HSEO, developers, community-based organizations, and I guess city, state, federal government agencies. Any one of those pique your interest?
HSCO.
I'm sorry, what was that?
HSCO.
I got you. Give me a second.
Hi, this is Mickey, attorney for the DCA. Can you send me to the one that the DCA is running?
All right, can do. Give me a second.
Hi, this is Peyton Flynn. Could you put me with the HSCO, please? Thank you.
I got you, Peyton. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. All right, Jerry Sumida, I see in your box light up.
Yeah, for developers, please.
I got you. Thank you. Give me a second.
Thank you.
Advocacy for me, John.
All right, John B. Yeah. All right. Thank you, John. Give me a second. Putting you with the consumer advocates. Thank you. And Ian Hodges. Give me a second here. Let me. Hey, good morning, Ryan Hurley. We're currently doing breakout rooms right now. I'm not too sure if you've seen the slides earlier, but I guess we broke people in this meeting up into the, I guess, the organizations that they're affiliated with. Do you know which organization you're
Yeah.
affiliated with here?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, my mic wasn't working, so I had to restart. Yeah, I would say the community one.
All right, give me a second. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, Robin. Your name's not popping up in the breakout sessions here, so I'm sorry I cannot throw you in. Let me try and get this figured out. Hey, good morning, Gwen. We're currently doing breakout sessions, and I've assigned people to their appropriate affiliation here. So if you don't mind me asking, is it okay if I ask which group you're affiliated with so I can throw you into that breakout session?
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute. I am with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, but I wasn't sure if you had specific breakout groups that you wanted to put people in.
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up there a second, Gwen. Which affiliation, which group are you affiliated with?
I'm with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. I'm a state agency, but were there subgroups that like different topics?
State agency, I think there was a subgroup there. Give me a second. Let me try to find it.
Or equity I mean, I guess it's all about equity, but.
So hold on.
Oh, is it in the community co-creation or community energy boards? Is that the groups? Like what are the different groups you have?
I think if I put you in the other energy sector, I think that might fall under state agency.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Give me a second. Hey, good morning, Marcy. We're currently in breakout sessions right now, and there's different breakout sessions depending on the organization that you're affiliated with. May I ask which breakout session you might be interested in joining? Good morning, Marcy. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Um, this is Marcy from the
No worries, no worries.
yeah, sorry about that. I had it on mute on my side. This is Marcy from the CA's office. Sorry I'm joining late.
Okay.
I actually just found
No
out
worries,
about
Marcy.
it.
I'll
Yeah.
throw you into that room. Give me 1 second. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you.
sharing to the whole participant group.
Okay, thanks everybody for participating in that exercise. Hopefully I was able to generate some good discussion. We'll capture those notes anonymously, which will be filed in the docket. Stephanie, I know we had hoped to do a share out, but just noting time, and we want to make sure we have a break and then enough time for Lauren's presentation and her exercise. Maybe we can go to a 5-minute break so folks can stretch, use the facilities, get some coffee. And if you'd like to share out anything from your group, you can add that to the chat. And then we'll plan to come back at, let's say, at 10:45 for Lauren's presentation. I think if you're speaking, you're on mute, Stephanie.
I just wanted to say it sounds great, Pete. Mahalo, and mahalo to everyone. Thank you so much.
Everybody, please feel free to turn on your webcam or whatever the case may be whenever you're back and ready to resume. This next portion of the session, Lauren will be presenting on community energy boards, and then we'll have an additional activity to discuss some of the concepts associated with community energy boards. I think Alika is ready to share your slides, Lauren, so please let us know when you're ready and we can get into it.
Wonderful, thank you. Will do. All right, that's me. I'm up. Okay, so community energy board. So I'm good to go into it, right? I'm looking at a lot of like screens, but I do see some PC faces that I'm heard and well. Okay, so I'm going to be presenting, and then I'll be calling on Marty to kind of help with some other things. But right now, just the overview is the community energy board as was like presented in the letter. So I would like to present on the ideas in the letter, but also kind of expand and give all of us some food for thought, really, when we get into our breakout groups, to just dive deeper into the topics covered. I'll do my best to stay on time, but like same thing, like you can put questions in the chat. Hopefully we'll have time for that. But really this is about changing, this board is really about like changing the procedural process and the relationship a community energy board can have with an energy system that has community as like having agency and being a stakeholder in this process. So next slide. Yeah, and so for me, I love a good graphic, and just want to kind of have this as my context setting a little bit before I go into the details of the board, that this is really a refresher, I know, for a lot of us, and a lot of, aligned with a lot of the definitions that the PUC and the tenants the PUC already had early on in this docket. And so really here, just really focusing on the procedural change and how it's woven together with these other aspects of energy justice. And I'll probably quote Shalana Baker a lot, but basically she says justice needs to be at the core of the transition. And a just transition requires a fundamental understanding that this is about power dynamic shifting and holistic approaches being pursued. And meaning, if it's to be just, and especially looking at restorative justice, it has like community voices at the center. And we'll dive more deeply into that. And so for the sake of time, just pointing out that ensuring a just system, and it must be about ensuring the distribution of the benefits and burdens of energy production are met, are equitable. So this is what we hope with the Community Energy Board and community co-creation. That's already been said. It's ambitious, but we get at some of these core issues regarding broken trust, lost faith in the system, and constantly feeling, or community constantly feeling, as we've heard, as like an afterthought in energy development, reacting to projects with little agency. So this is my big invitation for all of us to view the stakeholders and decision makers of energy design in a whole different way. And so I'll quote somebody who I think we've heard before too, but Ryan, who has said from, I remember the first meeting of like, we need to flip this system on its head and just do bottom up, right? This is about bottom up instead of top down, working with people up, meaning people up decision making. So not verbatim, obviously, but so what do I mean by that? With at least one concrete aspect of a just transition framework in practice is starting with, sorry, the next slide, please. The public trust resource that we have as like in our toolkit, right? So embarking on these great changes and this great paradigm shifts, we actually have something very concrete. Apologies. Article 11 of our Constitution, which explicitly names energy sources as a part of the public trust. This is important because going back to what we said earlier in the co-creation model about community technology, but also place-based knowledge, indigenous knowledge, that this law, right, it comes from it's traditionally based. Unlike Roman law or Magna Carta's like constitutions usually are, Hawaii's constitution is based on traditional understandings of the familial relationship between people and Aina, and was first recognized in the Kingdom Constitution of 1840. So this is important because this is, again, like was said earlier, part of the genealogy of Hawaii, and the place that we are all a part of and what we love about Hawaii and our resources. So this example of Indigenous knowledge and Hawaiian worldview being formally recognized, embodied in the Constitution, and used a lot, right? It's, as Advocates Sierra Club, we use the public trust a lot in like our water fights. We know this. So we want to just think of our current system design as increasingly interconnected with these tensions we're seeing with our land and our water being used. This, photo is of Kauai, of, there just a variety of projects being proposed that require different sources of renewable energy, which are shared resources like water, land, and energy. So again, paradigm shift and just kind of thinking about energy and not just how it powers our homes, but how access is really just a human right, because it speaks to us having same thing with like having food and shelter maintained. So not to be entirely esoteric, I will have examples of this in practice, but just wanting to start there. So you can move to the next slide. Yeah, so the Community Energy Board, as we have put it in our letter, that's a very wordy thing, but okay, I'll just read it for the sake of reading it. But it's an entity of diverse community members that would serve as key decision makers and an oversight entity to the contracted community planning company and utility throughout the RFP and development process. The planning company is something that I think Steph may have mentioned earlier, but in the community consultant role we have. So that's why I just put a little asterisk, because it's maybe not a word we often use, but the developer or the advisor in the planning process. And we would like to see the boards on each island ideally be chosen based on regional demographics to create some type of standards with special consideration of areas dealing with disproportionate impact of energy burden. Like we know on Oahu, where there's a high concentration on the Waianae coast and the Ko'olaloa with Kahuku. So we want to make sure that there is meaningful representation there as well, and community members represented. So the CEB could also serve in this capacity, being, it's a big idea, but being able to, as representatives, like go into these, like whether it's moku based, into these mokus and do mutual learning, community-based education. A part of that was shared earlier, but in the Molokai CRAP process, it was like consistent community engagement, feedback, and knowledge sharing that was not only just informing the community, but was also getting the priorities and the values of communities and having that be a part of their process. So yeah, and this is just critical of why a board necessarily in creating some infrastructure for it is because a process does take time, and we definitely will take that time to make that process, but having a kind of platform available and a community, whether it's hopefully maybe starts as advisory, but as a decision-making authority and oversight entity, allows for it to be formalized and not like an ad hoc kind of thing, but it was like established, and then we kind of work within communities to perfect it maybe. So again, it's an idea, but it's a method for sure for braiding, really working with the local expertise, the community technologists we called, or place-based knowledge, and informing the energy system. So we can go to the next one. And so why it is critical is obviously we really need impacted communities to have a seat at the table. Like it needs to happen, and something like a community energy board would provide that. Something Shalana Baker also says, because I listen to a lot of her talks, is like, no community is a monolith. We all know that. But if you create the right table that allows for community to have a seat, then And we'll talk about what these tables may look like or what the board actually looks like, because that's to be worked out. But however, if you establish something that provides that platform and that medium for a community to have a voice, that's what's important. So then we would also, with a board, we'd embed transparency and community values and concerns throughout the entirety of the development process. So with co-creation, but also as an oversight entity, the idea is like working with, the utility to look at renewable energy zones or look at controversial projects that may come up, and really, have the infrastructure design, the project design informed by place-based knowledge. Like that is the key thing, and on cultural respect, right? Because with environmental impact statements or assessments, right, that's kind of too late in the game for community to be having their concerns addressed. It should just be in the upfront and kind of again, already have those things embedded in the project itself, informed by the project, that those knowledge, care, and concerns. This is also the CEB being holistic and long-term of renewable energy sources chosen and the broader socioeconomic impacts it may have. And so this also shifts the kind of siloed approach we are kind of seeing, right? The PUC has their regulatory framework. The utility has like, the technical and the economic things they do. And like the understanding that I have is it just feels very like siloed. They're just, the utilities looking at technical stuff. And yes, environmental, topography, whatever it may be, but when community looks at the energy system, and the way land is being used, it's always about, well, how is this affecting our food system? Taking up this much land, what does that mean, right? We would also like to feed ourselves, right? Those are the tensions we're seeing. Or having these large industrial scale hydropower projects disrupting the ecosystems and the watersheds of those areas that farmers depend on, right? That is equally a priority. And farmers definitely have a whole lot of knowledge of how to restore and regenerate our watersheds, and maybe can inform a better scale of project or what the project may be. So I think that's where it's really important of that holistic and how it interacts and affects other pieces of the energy design. So it would be proactive, collaborative, and solution-oriented platform. We can go to the next one. Okay, so what could it do, right? Again, these are all ideas as a starting point. Of course, we want to take more, but so the structure and representation is something we will work out. So just starting with the fact, like a must-have of a board would be regularly scheduled public meetings, agenda and notes made available online. This happens a lot. Everybody's familiar. If you've ever went to a neighborhood board meeting, probably most of us have. So from neighborhood boards to the Commission on Water Resource Management, or there's the Climate Commission, right? We're used to this, so definitely have that. It can, of course, I've already said this, decision making oversight on procurement specifically. That's what we mean by oversight entity. So special note is like, we understand, and I've heard the confidentiality, the importance of confidentiality in like the competitive bid. But what if, board members signed non-disclosure forms and the review of projects in a public way can somehow be anonymous and just, hopefully like get away from that. I'm sure we can work that out. People have response, but I do want to thank Henry Curtis, because he is someone he's so involved and so informed. And so he definitely gave me that note. And so shout out to you, Henry. Thank you. That not to say that's just your idea. Well, you told me that response. I don't want to, you can say in the chat what you said, but basically you've talked about the black box, right? This was talked about in a prior meeting, that we need to not have a black box of what a project looks like until it's decided, right? Until it's chosen. That's what I'm trying to get at there. And so another thing that would be amazing for a board to do would to coordinate site visits, and hence the community education events, listening sessions, and more. I hope to hear ideas from you on what that could look like to really build out that mutual education, consistent engagement. And other ideas we've thought you know, it could work on community-led benefits packages in the forefront, maybe creating a standard that isn't just this. Oh, and then also not having just like the utility has their scorecard and criteria, but maybe a project as way of engaging with the broader community is that the board could kind of develop their scorecard. And I took from Molokai CRAP page 20 how they have this like rubric of community values and framework, and I think that's beautiful and that's brilliant, and that can be something that individual communities can like work on in themselves, but having something just not standardized, but like just again a framework for them to like start from and lead discussion into. So I think that might have been all I'm really saying. Again, we'll have opportunity to kind of dive more into these things a little bit later, but just the key thing to keep in mind is that Community Energy Board and the PUC, the idea, right, is that community has some type of decision-making authority. I think that's the real challenge and what we really want to try to get towards. So yeah, so I'll go on to the next one. And for this one, I will pass it off to my dear friend, Marty Townsend, to start kind of getting to nitty-gritty of these different ways we're viewing this board.
Thanks, Lauren. Yes, I would start by saying can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
There's no one right answer, right? This is part of the collaboration and co-creation effort, right? So, but we're just throwing out ideas, gonna look at a few examples that we have and hopefully engage in a conversation about where this might actually be useful because we're making something completely new. I want to reiterate that I think because there are two key elements that I see that the board needs to be able to do. They need to be able to hold space for community collaboration. And I think that's like one example that comes to mind working in the transportation area is that oftentimes they will do community planning around like urban redesign, for example, and they'll do what's called community charrettes. And it's basically a co-planning process, right? You don't have to have any specialized knowledge. Everybody gets into a room. There's a bunch of maps spread around and people break up into groups and they draw on the maps about what they would like to see in this particular area as we're redesigning it. And then, you know, the maps are all brought together. There's conversation had about which choices to be made. And then, you know, they do that a couple of times. It's an iterative process. And eventually they get down to one map and like, this is what the community has agreed to. There have been trade-offs. Not everybody got everything that they wanted, but it is a process by which then the decision makers, the government agencies that are implementing this, you know, whatever transportation redesign, then uses that as a guide for making choices going forward. And that's one example of how you might be able to hold space. And then also to be able to deliberate to a point where they get consensus on making those tough calls. And so the question is like, where do we put the CEB to where it can actually affect how the project turns out, right? I think it needs to be going to it has to be early enough in the process that we aren't just reacting to a project that's already been proposed. And we has to be late enough in the project or late enough in the process to where they actually are making useful and contributions to the decision-making process. So one possibility is to make it part of the Consumer Advocate's Office. You could make it part of the PUC itself. It is a body that informs PUC commissioners. Another way to think about it is making it part of the independent system operator. Or maybe the CEB is the entity that the ISO reports to. These are ways in which we could work the community, you know, sort of like braid the community into the decision-making process early enough to actually make a meaningful contribution. Next slide, I think. So here's an example of one that we have already. This is, you know, like the slide said, we have lots of examples of where we try to engage community in decision-making processes. The Water Commission is one example. There's 7 members in the Water Commission. 2 of them are directors, the director of the DLNR, the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and the director of the Department of Health. And then 5 of them are volunteers that are have some expertise in water resource management. People apply to be on one of these 5 seats, and there's a nominating committee. Nominating committee is chosen by one person is chosen by the House leadership, one is chosen by the Senate leadership, one is chosen by the governor. And they have this committee that comes together. They review applications for people who are expressing interest in serving on this board, and then they vet them. And then the nominating committee makes a recommendation. 3 people, depending on how many seats are open, 3 people, and then the governor appoints from that list, and then the Senate confirms. And this is a way to ensure that we have, people who are have the expertise and have the qualifications. Also elevates their decision making to their decisions are taken seriously. And so the Water Commission provides that oversight, and there's staff that actually work in the Commission on Water Resource Management, and the staff, they meet once a month. They present very detailed, complex water hydrology issues to the commissions, to the board, and they make decisions based on that input. They take public testimony, they do site visits, they will have meetings on neighbor islands as needed. But it's really meant to be, the place where the rubber meets the road, and really these decisions are having direct effect on water resources, and they're supposed to be community-based people. Next slide, I think. So these are other examples of where we could pull analogies from. Each island has a burial council. Burial council is an entity of community leaders, community members who help to make decisions about what should happen when native Hawaiian traditional burials are discovered, or more appropriately to prevent the disinterment of native Hawaiian burials. This is another good example of ways in which we came up with a process to ensure that we have qualified people who are fully engaged, who have specialized knowledge, and who are have the backing of government and are helping to inform government's good decisions. And I think this is a good example. The Burial Council is a good example where we can identify people from specific areas, recognizing that there's a lot of cultural history that is wrapped up in each place. We can find similar analogy in the Aha Moku, which is another community-based moku-driven decision-making body that was formed to inform DLNR resource management. And then there's the Historic Preservation Commission, which is another example of ways in which we can appoint people with specialized knowledge and have them help to inform decision making by the government. And then next slide, I think. So another example is, so those examples that I gave were more we have a large issue area with specialized knowledge, and each board takes in information and presentations by staff as needed. Some other examples are where you form something specific to an issue. The Red Hill Community Representation Initiative, this was formed as part of the EPA's enforcement action on the Navy in response to the November 2021 release from the Red Hill fuel tanks. And this function of this board, it's all community-based. They were elected by the public that was engaged in the process. We have specific categories, and we actually so I sit on this CRI, one of 10 members, and we actually worked in a co-creation kind of fashion with the EPA to help form this body. All the EPA said is that there'll be 10 seats and they will be elected. And so we figured out that those 10 seats would have represent specific communities, right? Directly affected families, Native Hawaiians. I wanted to make sure that there were people on the CRI that actually were representing a larger group. And so we put in an element there about having an organization. And then we did essentially a Mentimeter style election, both in person and online. And this body is, its purpose is to help to create a two-way dialogue with the Navy or Department of Defense generally around defueling, cleanup, closure, as well as the providing of safe drinking water. And then we've talked a lot about Molokai, and their Clean Energy Hui is another example of ways in which we can work as a group, right? So there is a core group that is doing the day-to-day work and making sure deadlines are met, but they have a philosophy and a principle that ensures that they are constantly checking back in with a larger community. I think that's a really good practice that we should be hopefully adopting in the CEB model here. And I think that's it. I'm really open to questions if anybody has any about any of these. Don't know if I went too long or too short. Thank you.
I think you're great, Marnie. Thank you. She has a lot of knowledge on these things. So I really appreciate being able to call her in. Last thing I will say about Molokai Clean Energy Hui and the essential sacred texts we call what is Molokai CRAP is that in their status conferences, I've heard them speak, about the infrastructure support and having that for them is what really, helps guide it. So we love their process, and we've been talking about how do we bring that to other islands. So that's what we're doing here. So we can go to the next slide, and I can give another, quick example of what meant by renewable energy zones. And this is the time I get to shout out Kurt, because we've been talking about this a long time, about the res map and, this input they have been taking. And early on in our conversations, writing our letter and just in Energy Equity Hui meetings, the openness to adding another layer to this, right? Because they're just doing broad public support, broad community engagement, which is necessary and critical, but also having something like a board also work to elevate that and work through some of these. If you aren't familiar with it, I would assume most of us are, but if you're not, so Kurt, feel free to put it in the chat. But basically, it's this map that is interactive that community has been for quite some time now been able to just anonymously put comments and help the utility identify opportunities and challenges in the identified zones that they have around solar and wind energy. So when we talk about appropriate siting and source selection, we really think having environmental justice, socioeconomic impacts, resiliency priorities can be, set by the board and set as priorities in this renewable energy zones creation. So next slide, please. And so just another one to throw out at you guys, throwing out a lot here, but with the board and the representation, when I mentioned earlier about the regional representation and MOKU, so this with Auntie Kapua, who I don't know if she's actually here right now. She's been busy with family. So, but this really, was her birth child, and she's always talked. I always have her voice in my head about, understanding how we need to equally share the benefits and burdens of projects and where they're at, and really think again with within Ahupua'a systems thinking and regionally resource management, right? Making exchanges rather than extracting, which the current system design does, right? We're extracting energy from, rural communities, 2 or 3 communities on Oahu powers around 75% of Oahu's grid. And then that's something the Waianae community, they have stated in a status conference before too. So I think to get away from that and then have this regional representation and actually create consistent dialogue and opportunities for these exchanges to be made where power production cannot be where it is closest to where it is needed in more of a distributed way. So just offering up these maps, Auntie had shown me too, how we do this with water, right? We understand yields and they're, these what, these aren't finite resources. And although the sun is abundant, the land on which we put these solar farms is not, right? So we have to just think in a just different framework, and this can kind of help with that. So yeah, so that's an idea. And so if you go to the next slide to kind of like further hone into this yields understanding and a community-led renewable energy zones process, is what if we were to start adding in the current process for renewable energy zones through the integrated grid planning, right? It's very technical, and it's like the engineering of it all, and how it works with the transmission line. But as we know, we really have to be thinking about what are the broader impacts. And again, using Oahu, because huge energy demand. We have this huge energy demand constantly. We're trying to like fill, and not enough space to do it, right? So that is a challenge. So that's why I put this here, not to dismiss the other challenges on all the islands, right? But just to kind of show, right, what if we were to create yields per ahupua'a through or moku-based landscapes, where we're, putting as a part of these what is possible, not possible, based on cultural and environmental concerns and the community input, right? That is the idea there. And so when we're then also, right, thinking we're only as good as our data, what if we had like real, like good data broken down on understanding regions on their consumption patterns and their production capabilities, and start balancing things out, right? I live in Makiki. I stare at Kaka'ako constantly, and these high-rise luxury condos that are like using a lot of energy, using a lot of water resources, these strains that are constantly coming up. And so we really got to think about, again, in this holistic way, one isn't like too much, right? One is ever going to do their fair share, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So that's why that is important, right? What are the consumption patterns? How do we produce power closest to where it is most needed instead of going across island? And another, just again, an idea, but thinking about what can we set like maximum and minimum generation capacities for mokus, again, thinking of the really heavy consumer mokus. I think at least of just throwing it out as like for a discussion, because I'm sure there's a lot of technical things that will be thrown at me about that idea. It has been before, but I think we got to talk it out, because there's definitely a moral imperative about our system design. So this is a part of thinking how to make it more community-led, community input. And honestly, that really just benefits local communities being able to power themselves, right? That agency and understanding energy design by Moku, not by island. And I think that might be my last one. Can you go to the next slide, please? Because that might be in my last one. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry, it was a further one. I stopped looking at my notes a long time ago. So again, furthering honing in on this. So we have adding like consumes like X amount of gigawatts per year in this given area, how much it produces, right? These comparisons, that's the you're only as good as your data. What is the generation capacity? Like these are metrics and what is that? Factors. I'm trying to use like engineering terms, but basically these are the data we want to know of each area. Like break it down. Let's break it down and start building, by scale. And that's also what's going to make us more climate resilient as well. As been said, distributed grids are much more resilient than these centralized grids. There's plenty of examples. I always think of Puerto Rico and like, the challenges they had with like the centralized system design and transmission lines. So, okay, I think that would have been my last ones. Because again, throwing out ideas, because I really feel like this incredible opportunity we have to present these ideas is about how, talking amongst everybody here in this meeting. So I think we can go to our breakouts now. If that was my last slide, I think that would have made my thank you one at the end. So, okay, so for breakouts, yes, whole lot was thrown. And we are but one little, RFP sub Hui that had proposed this letter, but it's meant to be for discussion. So defining community is a big one. Impacted community, host community, like it's been described in different ways, but I think when we talk about representation and right representation, That is where we kind of want to deep dive. We have some prompts for that. With the board member selection, Marty went through various examples of how, nominated, appointed, through an election, like how they're selected, but also like what is the expertise needed from communities to kind of give a little bit of like what kind of background are we looking for. And then third, the community energy board examples. We had so many models. Maybe we can kind of deep dive and just get some feedback, right? This is a feedback session, and definitely want to hear people's thoughts and ideas. And so you can self-select where you go. And I'll let the PUC kind of do their thing with putting people in different rooms. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lauren. And yes, I'll open breakout groups in a second. I apologize. I had messed up the settings for the breakout groups for the earlier session, and it was difficult to move between one or another breakout group. But for this one, you should be able to change the settings. So you should be able to self-select into one of these 3 groups. So without further ado, I'll move into these, and I think we'll have until about 11:45 for these groups, and then we'll reconvene.
Thanks, Pete. And just to make sure we go to the tab at the bottom, right? Oh, and it does prompt here too. Thank you.
Yes, I've just assigned a few people who are facilitating and taking notes, but everyone else should be able to join, whichever they prefer.
How do we see the choices?
I was just about to ask that, but if you go on participants, at the top of the participants tab, you should see breakout sessions have started, and then you can choose a session there.
Good morning to, I guess, everyone else still in the room here. As stated earlier, I guess if you click the participant tabs, it's one of those 3 tabs on the bottom right of your screen if you're in the computer. It should have an option at the very top of the participants where you can choose a session, and you can choose between defining community, discussing board members, or discussing board examples. Feel free to jump in there. If you're not too sure which one, just let me know and I'll try throw you in one. Call in user 2 there. I'm not too sure if you're calling in from a phone. I'm not too sure if you have the same option, but if you want to let me know which one you want to be in, I'll throw you into that discussion room.
Hi, Alika. It's Stephanie. I'm just taking a little break, so I'm not joining any session for
Oh,
now.
no problem, Stephanie. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Alika, are you there?
I'm still here.
Hey, do you guys like after everybody leaves this meeting room, does the PUC team stay on so we can just chat about how we're gonna like gather up? You know, I'm so curious to see all the information from Mentimeter and stuff. And the breakout
Yeah, I
rooms.
can talk to Pete. I mean, as of right now, we're still being recorded in the main session, so we can chat in the private chat here a little bit, and then I'll let Pete know. We could probably debrief after.
Yeah, okay, like a real brief one after for just us, you know? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no
Perfect.
problem, Sam. All right,
Thank
thank you.
you. Thanks. I'll text him as well. I'll text our thread.
All right, thanks, Steph. Good morning, Stephanie Violetti. I see that you just popped in here. Currently, the rest of the session is in breakout groups. They're discussing stuff. So if you're interested, there's 3 breakout groups right now. The first one is defining community. The second one is discussing board members. And the third is discussing board examples. Is there a specific one you feel like piques your interest? And I'll throw you into that one.
I guess maybe the first one, that works.
Oh, all right. The first one, defining community. Sound good with you?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
All right. Stand by sending in now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. I hope those breakout groups held some pretty valuable and robust discussions. We were able to talk through the issues. Lauren, did you want to lead a share out from the groups? I can if you'd prefer.
You go for it.
Oh yeah, sounds good. So I facilitated breakout group 1 on defining community. Is there anybody from breakout group 1 who'd like to share some of the issues we talked about? Well, I can share on our behalf, and if anybody would like to add any clarity, feel free to do so. We talked a bit about the appropriateness of moku as a way to sort of determine community, reflecting that it's a traditional Hawaiian method, and that could be one way to define community in terms of projects, for specific projects, and potentially for the Community Energy Board. We didn't get too into the details on, what specific characteristics or demographics might be appropriate beyond these sort of larger designations. We also talked a bit about the role of education and anything that's going in, as well as marketing and outreach in this renewable energy transition, as well as specifically focused on community involvement. A lot of us, this is our job to, sleep or eat, think, breathe, talk about renewable energy and the development and how it affects communities. But community members who might want to be involved in projects might not have that the benefit of that sort of the foundational education on what goes into these decisions, decision making, especially the technical aspects. We also talked about how, one method for determining community is not going to be, and what communities talk about and are focused on is not going to be, a one size fits all approach for all communities. Communities have very different concerns and thoughts that are unique to that specific community. So I'll pass it on to, I think, Marty, did you facilitate breakout group 2?
Yes, I did. Thank you. And I invite anybody from our breakout group to chime in. Basically, we discussed board members, how to select them and what kinds of expertise. And we talked about how, what kinds of people we choose would be based on the kind of structure that it has. And so there was some conversation about how, it's really effective when you have smaller groups that are more place-based, more direct, directly affecting. People get excited about those decisions that directly affect their quality of life in their neighborhood, and so having smaller boards making decisions might be better. There was concern raised about, the way in which board members are selected and how it might be gamed by entities who want to try to influence the way in which decisions are made in a particular area. And that, it's difficult to really provide for that. I tried to think through or talk through the idea that maybe we're to a place at this point where we all recognize that we need to get on the same side of this in order to really transition our whole utility off of fossil fuels. And so hopefully we wouldn't have that much gaming. That may be a little Pollyannish or naive, but one can hope. That said, I shared that for the CRI, that's one reason why we chose to go with an election as opposed to some sort of nomination process, because we wanted to have the public who were most engaged on that issue be the ones who made the decisions. And there's tough choices to be made there too. There's a lot of public outreach and engagement you have to do to ensure that the election is actually well informed. As opposed to, a nomination process where people can, put forth their expertise, and then somebody who's really thoughtful about it, makes an informed decision. It's tough either way, but it was a good conversation. And I'll pass it on to the next person.
That's me. Okay, so I had the group who we were, given the task to think through some of the examples that was it, and there was plenty of them to first respond. But our conversation was more just understanding the place of it. And at any time, please in the chat or chime in, those who are in my breakout group, about making sure that if a board is created, that it doesn't actually somehow create less input from community by virtue of just saying, okay, how I understood it, we have a board. So that's the community, and the community is engaged. But what about the broader community? Because now we're asking the community to go to the board to give input rather than vice versa is the goal. So I think that's something that would be hopefully embedded in just what the board does in the process when we talk through that. And another thing, just transparency is a key critical element of everything. So we didn't get into necessarily one example of a board or one model to work out, but we did have someone who was really good about breaking down the statutory versus how the different examples could be analogous to energy. And then a great note was made mention about how there already is an independent observer who has their way of looking at rates or economics, but having community through the independent observer in RFPs as an example of where it could have a place, because that's what's missing there. So really welcome anybody from Breakout 3 to also add. Could say, an idea of this has been proposed in the past at a time where it wasn't responded to. So I think it's important that, anybody from my breakout group who wants to say anything is welcome. But okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for all three groups for sharing out some of the perspectives. Again, we'll capture these all in the notes that were taken during those breakout groups anonymously, and we'll make sure those are filed with the slides and the recording as well in the dockets. The last few things to wrap up the meeting, Alika, if you could share the slides. Stephanie, did you want to lead this last wrap-up activity, or should I?
Sorry, I was muted. Were you going to do some other announcements, and should we use our final word wrap up for the very end, Pete, or were you thinking do it now?
We can save it for that then. This will be pretty quick. Just wanted to recap the next steps. So commission, so as we mentioned, this is meeting 4. We will have one more meeting to wrap up this series of meetings. Before that meeting, the commission staff plans to file a draft a set of recommendations and reflecting and summarizing the meetings we've had so far on the docket, as well as other docket filings that are relevant for the series of meetings, and file that in the docket for this group and anybody interested to provide feedback on. We'll aim to file that before the next meeting so that we can sort of gather and discuss that feedback in real time. We will also have a presentation from Ulupono on community benefits packages during that meeting. And if there are any other folks who are interested in sharing any presentations that would sort of help the final development of this staff report for the IGP-RFP series of meetings, we can look to incorporate that into the February meeting. And I just want to also highlight, as Ashley did at the beginning of the meeting, we have also filed our draft scope of work for the consultant for this docket in the docket this past Thursday. I believe it was filed, and we're asking for feedback by next Friday. I think that's it in terms of next steps and wrapping up this meeting. So I can turn it to you, Stephanie.
Awesome. Just wanted to say mahalo to the PUC for inviting the Energy Equity Hui to present. We really appreciate this opportunity to share our thoughts. I just want to thank everybody here who, engaged in the activities with us and were really present. Really appreciate your feedback. And so for our final, wrap up, we had wanted to do like a word cloud, like if everybody could think of like one word to capture how they're feeling, maybe right now after participating in today's meeting. We're going to do it in chat today. So if you could just, think of one word that you'd want to share out to all of us that captures how you're feeling about the content and information.
I think we may have lost Stephanie again, but just to recap, we're asking sort of as this last final debrief or wrap up for the meeting, reflecting on how everything went today. How do you feel after today's workshop, maybe in one or two words, in general, maybe about the equity docket or this series of meetings and the change or the modifications and the recommendations we're hoping to develop?
Apologies, I think I got disconnected for a minute or so. I'm typing into the chat right now the sort of prompt.
So we've gotten about 10 to 15 responses. Feel free to continue reflecting and provide any additional words to sort of summarize your feelings. I did want to take this moment to thank Stephanie and Lauren and others from the Energy Equity Hui for helping facilitate and share content and develop the activities for this presentation. I hope you all found the presentations as valuable and meaningful as I did, and I think these will be great to incorporate what we're learning in the ideas that we're generating and reflecting on as a group into the staff report and a series of recommendations, and build off those within this equity docket moving forward. Stephanie, Lauren, or anybody from the PUC, if there's anything else you'd like to share, please go for it.
Just want to thank everyone for being here today. And again, mahalo to Stephanie and Lauren for guiding us through this very expansive thinking process.
Thank you. Thanks so much to you all.
Yeah, I do want to just note the openness to something like this, to at least hear it out, accept it, and let people respond is already a really important evolution in terms of getting the gears shifting somewhere. It's like a juggernaut, right? So I do really appreciate that. It went from a small conversation idea to a letter to here, and hopefully keeps going. And I think those are the things I hope in the long run we can look back of proud of these shifts and priorities made, equity and justice in this transition. So got to start somewhere. Happy to start with y'all. Thank you.
Mahalo, everybody, and hope this has been a good start to your Monday and you have a good rest of your week.
Mahalo. Thank you.
Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Mahalo.